This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Oh, so what do we see when we open the gates? We have Phil on mute.
Phil, you're still on mute.
Wow, imagine that. Sorry, I mic checked and then I must have left myself on mute.
That's all right.
Sorry. Let's get back to the game. So you open the castle gates and you see like the whole entire castle guard, right? Like, I mean, dozens of soldiers, full battle gear, lined up, like ready for you, like no surprise whatsoever.
So they notice us?
Yeah. You used bomb blast to blow the doors off the hinges. Like there's no surprise on their faces. They are ready for you.
All right, let's get in there then. Do you want the right side, the left side, or the middle, Jerry?
I want them all.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I mean, it's a lot of guys.
Yeah, we've been waiting for this. Back me up. I charge in.
I draw my sword and we go in side by side.
All right. Roll 2d6 plus chutzpah. You each need at least a 16 or higher if you're going to survive this encounter.
Damn it. I got a 13.
Spend your big points and re-roll.
An 11. Really?
Let's put another. Roll again.
All right, fine. 9. No. I got 3 vig left, so 8. Ooh, no. 11. Damn it. 16. There we go. Awesome.
Okay. That used up all your resources. Now Jerry's turn.
I've been waiting for this. I've been a part of these for 3 sessions. I've been milking my flaws for more.
Whew, that's a lot of Vig tokens you got. How many you have?
22 Vig tokens. Time to roll some dice and re-roll some dice.
Oh boy, this encounter's not going to go the way I planned.
Nope.
And with that, welcome to the 432nd episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight we talk about game economies and resources, how to use them, when to use them, and how to make them work in your games. Along the way, we'll take comments, suggestions, examples from the chat room for life before heading into the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan. All right, kids. It's Tuesday night. We're back. Welcome to the party. Thank you for hanging out with us. As per usual, we're going to do a quick check to make sure everybody's feeling okay before we head into the house. So, Phil, how you feeling?
Physically fine. No complaints physically. Mentally, I'm okay. I'm better, I think, than I was maybe last week. There's still just a lot going on. A lot of stuff going on, managing some anxieties, things like that. But I probably less depressed than I was last week. I did read a good article today about something called languishing, that, if, we may all just be languishing, which is kind of, in the doldrums of not really thriving, but also not really depressed either.
If you think of it, share that out later.
Yeah, I'll have to track it back down and find it. I think it passed me sometime today in Twitter. I'll go look.
Cool.
How about you?
I am physically, my allergies decided to take it back up a notch. I don't know why. Everything seemed like it was nice and leveling out and mellow 2 days ago, and then yesterday it started to ramp up a little bit. Today, the runny nose and the sneezing, and I'm like, what? Really? I don't get it. So I'm like a little annoyed by that, but otherwise feeling pretty good. Mentally, same, feeling pretty good. No major complaints. Obviously things are still a little wild. A little out of whack from what we were used to, and it'll take some time to get into whatever we call normal later. So, but yeah, feeling pretty good. Jerry,
I'm doing pretty good. Mentally, I'm mostly okay. I got sick to my stomach Sunday night, and it just threw me for a loop, and then so I didn't get much sleep. and I was okay, but I've been a little bit queasy. So today I'm much better, but just been not quite the same quality of sleep. Last night was okay, and then I drove for basically 5 hours today. So I'm feeling okay, but just a little bit tired. I was good this morning, but it kind of kicked in this afternoon. And road food isn't always the best for that.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'm doing okay. Just if I suddenly look a little green, that's nothing more than just, that'll pass.
Yeah.
But no, I'm doing good. Mentally, I'm okay. But yeah, the allergies have kicked in with the weather patterns that we've got coming in. I have sinus allergies, so whenever the weather changes, I'm good if it's hot. I'm good if it's cold. I'm good if it's sunny. I'm good if it's rainy. On the days that it goes back and forth, that's when my entire sinus system goes higgledy-piggledy, and I'll be sneezing, sniffling. I'll break out. It's all sorts of stuff. So it's fun. But no, I'm doing better and looking forward to a good show.
Awesome. All right.
I did, by the way. I just retweeted out that article. So
awesome.
Look for it in my feed later.
Fabuloso. All right, cool. That means we can jump into the one thing, and I will lead us off with the Marvel folks dropped the first teaser for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. And I was giddy watching that. After arguably, I still enjoyed both seasons of Iron Fist, even though the first season was way substandard from what it should have been. But this character, Shang-Chi, is the other preeminent martial arts character, arguably the more prominent one in the Marvel Universe. And the fight sequences in the teaser are hands down already way above and beyond anything that Iron Fist showed us. And it's exciting, like, oh, this is going to be some wild, fun stuff that we're going to get. I'm so looking forward to this. And it looks like it's going to be a really good time. So
trailer was excellent. To see Marvel do a wuxia film is going to be amazing at Marvel, with Marvel special effects and stuff like that. Awkwafina as Shang-Chi's friend is great. Like, she was the little bus scene they showed.
Yep.
Yes.
She was fantastic. And I don't know if you noticed this because I picked this up on TikTok. Did you see the little Easter egg on the bus scene?
I may have. I'm drawing a blank though.
Okay. There's a moment where right after Shang-Chi double kicks two guys to the side and he lands, and Awkwafina says to him, she's like, "Who are you?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy sitting on the bus. He's got curly hair and a bushy beard. He is the street vendor in Spider-Man Homecoming who yells out to Spider-Man when he's going through the neighborhood to do a flip.
Oh man,
that's cool.
That's pretty obscure. I gotta watch it again now.
Some people on TikTok found it and showed the two clips, and it is absolutely the guy from Spider-Man Homecoming.
I love it.
That's
Everything's
awesome.
connected, baby.
That is what we want to see. Keep doing shit like that.
Yep.
That's what we want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's seriously some. That's I don't know if you know the term rivet counter, but that's the name for the Titanic fanatics, the rivet counters, because they count literally every rivet on the hull. That is that reference, that Easter egg is some rivet counter territory.
Yeah, that was cool. A very exciting teaser. It wasn't even a full trailer, but I mean,
I also like that. I think we're going to get the real Mandarin.
Oh, it's confirmed. We're getting the real Mandarin. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little sad when they. I was a little sad in the Iron Man series when they teased the 10 rings in the first one, and then you see the Mandarin, and I was kind of excited, and then none of the rings showed up.
Yep.
And then it wasn't really the Mandarin at all anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's enough about my one thing.
About it.
What about you, Jerry? What do you got?
I started watching Invincible this week, which is on, I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
It's a cartoon by the guy who did The Walking Dead, and it is 4-color comic superheroes with dark and gritty. I mean, it's brutal, it's violent. It's basically about a kid who finds out that who knows that his father is the most powerful superhero on the planet, and you find out very early on that the most powerful superhero on the planet has a dark side. So, I mean, basically, what if Superman went really bad? And he doesn't know his dad is going bad. And he's trying to, so it's him trying to deal with his powers. You've got some pastiches of, like, the Justice League and the Teen Titans and Luke Cage and a bunch of other characters. And it's just well done. I mean, if you want to see really good superhero on superhero or superhero on supervillain action, it's all over the place. Lots of great tropes and everything, and it's also dark if you like your dark and gritty. It's kind of what I imagine DC wants to do with their dark and gritty universe, but they keep making it dark they keep making it literally dark as opposed to just dark storylines. But it's 4-color comics. Most of the action takes place in the sunlight with people wearing, spandex sprayed on and stuff like that. And also just some very creative characters with interesting powers and abilities, which I always like to see when they do something kind of fun and clever with that. So it's a fun show. It's not for everybody. It's very violent. It's very bloody. You will see heroes and villains get their head crushed till their eyes pop out, that kind of stuff. So it's not for that, but it's got a lot of fun. And yeah, it's not going to be for everybody. You've got to enjoy the dark and gritty. Mm-hmm. But it's also a really well done superhero show. I mean, it's fun. So that's me.
Cool.
Phil?
Yeah, I got to see my therapist for the first time face to face in a year.
Yeah.
I've been doing telehealth for a year since the pandemic hit. And after I had cleared my vaccination plus 2 weeks, I emailed my therapist and I was like, I don't know, like, are you taking people in person kind of thing? And she's like, I am on a limited basis, and and you're, the time you already have booked, we could do in person if you want to do in person. So we did. I resisted the urge to hug my therapist. I mean, I haven't seen a human being that I'm not related to in person since I think the last time I saw you guys in October.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So it was, it was different. It was different. It was different talking to somebody in person.
Yep.
We still did masks, we did masks, but, and we were, we sat apart, and it was actually, I mean, I actually felt pretty safe. There was a window between the two of us that was open. There was an air purifier on. We both wore our masks, and, I'm pretty sure we were both vaccinated. I did not ask her vaccination status. I am vaccinated. So, it was nice. And I got to be honest, my house does not have the thickest walls. So therapy in my house this last year has been tricky because you can't always say everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because, it carries through the walls and there's teenagers milling about and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really nice to go have a session where I could just say what I wanted to say. And it definitely helped my mood. Like, it was definitely nice to have been in that session. I think my next session for May is also scheduled to be be in person, so kind of excited for that as well. So my normal treat of getting myself an iced coffee and then going there is a little hampered by the mask, so I think I'm just going to treat myself to an iced coffee after.
There you
just
go.
Okay.
On the way home, get myself a coffee kind of thing.
Cool.
Anyway, that's me. I'll jump really quickly through announcements. No announcements other than the Voyager Watch Party continues. This week we finish off season 3. We're crossing into season 4. I'll be honest, this is the last time you really could jump in without having to do. Well, you'll have to do catch up if you've never watched Voyager before. But if you were looking for a good jump in point, the season 3 cliffhanger, season 4 opener. Is a perfect time to get into the last half of the series. There's some big changes that happen in those episodes, the first couple season 4 episodes, that kind of shape the rest of the series. So this would be the time to get in. Beyond that, you would just be playing Eternal Catch Up with us, which you're welcome to do if you're a Voyager fan and just want to kind of sit in and watch some episodes.
Yep.
That's it. That's it. I don't have anything else. We can roll right into our feature segment.
And we're doing another workshop. Yay. All right, you ready, Phil?
Yes. Workshop. We're talking about economies. We're talking about giving points, getting points, using points, getting more points. Keep them flowing, keep them moving, because that's what makes an economy work in the workshop.
Don't suck.
All right. Tonight we're going to talk about game economies, but not money, since we covered this a few episodes ago in episode 429. The economies we want to talk about are player currencies, like Fate Point in Fate, Hero Points in Barbarians Lemuria, Force Points in Genesis Star Wars, and Bennies in Savage Worlds. And there are other games that have similar things. This is a topic we've been kicking around and it's been on my mind when I started playing Chris's Dresden game. In the past, I've had challenges with hoarding currencies, like Bennies and Fate Points. But as I've been playing Dresden, I've been coming to understand the importance of using those Fate Points instead of reporting them all the time. So tonight, we're going to talk about how to keep economies working at the table. In a very pandas way, we're going to look at it from both the GMing side and the player side.
Yeah. And if any of this sounds familiar, that would be a sign that you are a long-time listener, because we addressed some of this back in October of 2019 in episode 379 when we talked about economies and currencies. But in that episode, we did it as a garage episode where we looked at the mechanics of how they work. Tonight, oh, sorry, go ahead. Bob's going to take it from there.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to look at how to make it work at the table. And of course, to get that started, we got to have some definitions from Definition Panda. So,
behold, you are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Yeah. I'm going to, for sake of efficiency, I'm going to steal some of the definitions that we used in 429. I'm going to breeze through them quickly, since if you've been listening to the last couple episodes, they should be pretty fresh. So first of all, currency, right? Circulation as a medium of exchange. It's something that currency is something that we acquire and spend. For this show, we're going to focus on player-based currencies, right? These are things that players earn and spend during the course of the game. And Jerry named off a whole bunch of these, right? So things like Fate Points, Bennies, Force Points, all of those things. These points, from a mechanical perspective, and again, this harkens back to 379, these points often grant some sort of mechanical and or narrative benefit to the spender, right? The Benny allows a reroll. The Benny allows you to soak damage. Fate Points do, similar things with rerolls and +2s and things like that. And what they ultimately are used for, these player-based currencies, is they steer the game away from being totally random, right? So, like, if we imagine a game, if we imagine a Savage Worlds game without bennies, that game would be a bit out there. Like, you would be just at the mercy of the dice and dice exploding and whatever, and no way to kind of re-roll anything or soak damage. Like, the game would be a very different game. That player-based currency allows you to exert some influence on the mechanics and the narrative of the game, right? It takes it out from being totally random to being a thing where you can look and say, I wish to alter this roll in my favor. I will spend this limited currency to do so. Okay. Next term we want to talk about is economy, a system especially of interaction and exchange. If currency is the thing you get or spend, economy is the cycle of getting and spending those things. And the key word here being cycle, which means that there's a flow of points moving about the game table. Each game will have an ideal pace for how the points flow. And good designers actually tell you that in the game. Like, players should be acquiring about this many fate points in a session. You should compel aspects this many times. You should, players should spend about, should have about this many bennies, that kind of thing, right? Without understanding that, you really won't know, and we'll talk about this in a moment, you really won't know what shape your economy is in. And to that point, a healthy economy is an economy of points that matches the pace that's in line with the designer's intent, right? So if I'm compelling the correct number of aspects and players are spending the intended amount of points, within a few scenes, within a session or whatever, then our economy is healthy. A non-healthy economy is one that is either underclocked, that's going slower than expected, or overclocked, in that we're cycling through currency faster than expected. And depending on the game you're playing, having a slower flow of points or a faster flow of points will have consequences on the play of the game.
Absolutely. So with that understanding, Jerry, can we describe an economy using, say, Fate as an example?
All right, let's do a little crash course in economies. In Fate, the currency is the Fate point. And Fate points are going to have several uses during the game. They're going to allow you to add +2 to a roll. They're going to allow you to re-roll all the dice. They're going to allow you to establish something in the narrative, and you can also buy off a compel that comes in the game. So the character's going to start the game with a certain number of fate points, and that's going to equal to whatever their refresh stat is. And then during the game, they're going to spend points to achieve things based on how they're used. However, they're also used, or they're also earned whenever you have an aspect that's compelled, used to making something more complicated. They can also earn fate points when conceding to a conflict. And so the cycle that the players are going to be spending fate points throughout play, making rolls or defining things in the narrative, and then they gain those points when their aspects make life more complicated. And that's pretty much how they go. You spend them to make things better, and you get them whenever you make your life more complicated or give something up.
Cool. So Phil, extending this Fate example, why are healthy economies important?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the simplest is, right, it's design intent. Right. The designer had, through the design of the game, the designer had in mind this economy and, how it should get spent. Right. So in the case of fate points, right, there's a fate point economy, right, that kind of covers this whole thing of how you gain them and spend them during the game. And, the designer's intention is that that's a thing that should happen all through the game. Like there should be this continuous thing where players are spending their fate points and then also getting compelled, to get more fate points. Otherwise, if it wasn't the designer's intent, there'd be a fixed number of fate points per session, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Which would be a totally valid design, right? Like that's a totally valid design to say, like, okay, you have X number of points to change the outcome of the game, but you only get this many in the course of a game, right? Like that's a totally legitimate thing. Yep. But the economy, right? The design of the economy is designed so that the compel, which is to make things more interesting, is a constant thing that keeps happening. That, and again, this is designer intent, right? That your trouble aspect, or some of your other aspects, will get you in trouble in scenes. Like can't keep my big mouth shut. Is a trouble aspect that is designed to cause problems in social situations. Mm-hmm. And by allowing the GM to compel it, the GM can make the game more interesting, right? That's interesting is fun thing, not punitive, right? Like, yes, this is a differentiation in the book, right? The goal is to make things more interesting, but in doing so, the player gets additional currency to also push the boundaries of the game in places they want. Okay, so then the first part of the reason why this is important is because it was designed that way, and that's totally valid. All right, the second thing is the game needs points to be spent, right, in order to meet the expectations of the game. Meaning that, and I saw Schmitty mention this in the chat room just a second ago, if a game has an economy, the expectation is points get spent during the course of the game. And this is, to avoid, we'll talk about hoarding it a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But consider in Fate that the average die roll for normal people is +0. If you are me, the average die roll is -1. That has been statistically proven.
Yes.
Which is why you never want me to be a player in a Fate game, but you always want me to be the GM in a Fate game.
Yep.
because I roll so poorly. But but on average, the D4F is a +0 mean, which means that if you have a difficulty of 3 and you're using your +2 skill, right? Because in a normal Fate game, you have 1 +4 skill, 2 +3 skills, and then 3 +2 skills. If you're using one of your +2 skills, on average, you need a Fate point to achieve success. Now, that's not the only thing you can use, right, Chair?
Mm-hmm. Now, on invokes and invokes on created aspects, we're going to help to stretch out the fate point spends because you can create additional currency that can be used in place of the character's fate points.
Yeah, I didn't want the fate fanatics to be all over me and not talk about invokes, but invokes are totally a part of this. But the point being is, if on average you roll +0 and you're using your +2 skill, you're expected that if you want this roll to pass, and you rolled your the statistical norm, you'll spend the fate point to get there.
Yeah.
Right. So if you hoard fate points, then you're going to fail more often than the design intent. Right. Fate's a game about being competent heroes, but if you're not using those fate points to help be competent, then you're not really like achieving the design of the game, which is to play competent heroes.
Yeah, I will argue that later on. Go ahead.
No, it's fair. It's fair. We can argue that later. All right. Yeah. So in a healthy fate economy, players spend fate points during the course of the game. They use compels to gain points when their aspects make things more complicated. Players, pretty much should always have a fate point or two handy. Sometimes you run out. We'll talk about that when we talk about tips. We'll talk about that when we talk about tips in just a minute. When an economy over underperforms, the feel of the game can change. Right. So when it underperforms, and this is the most common problem when people run Fate and games in general with economies.
Sorry, I'm answering a question. This could be the case of either not having enough compels to generate Fate points, which I've had happen, or players hoarding them, which happens all the time with me. There's also a lack of Fate points in use, and thus there's more of a need for invokes. This puts a lot of pressure on creating advantages for everything, or people are failing more often. In the first case, the game gets more drawn out for even the simplest tasks because people aren't using their fate points.
Yeah, you could take that last bullet. I don't know why I didn't color it.
Oh, okay. And in the second half, characters don't feel as competent.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When an economy overperforms, or there's a fast turnaround of fate points going on.
Okay. Players are either going to be able to achieve the hardest task, or will just generally succeed since they can always spend a point to succeed. The game can often border on slapstick with all the compels occurring left and right. As a design note, Fate is a bit more resistant to overperformance, but I would say that Savage Worlds is not, and that's 100% true. Savage Worlds, very quickly, you can have one dice roll accelerating past the level of control. As a GM or player, you have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, there's also depending on which Savage Worlds game you're playing, and again back to which version you're playing. I have seen some games where players either start with an obscene amount of fate points, right, as a design intention, right, with an obscene amount of fate points, or or the opposite, right? I've seen some Savage Worlds games where fate points bennies are hard to come by, and
yeah, I've played in a couple games with GMs who basically you're gonna get some bennies at the start of the game, and that's probably what you're gonna get by the end of the 4-hour session. You really have to furiously lean really, really hard on your flaws in order to get extra fate points or bennies, which is not the way the game is intended. I've also played games with GMs that you need every single benny you have to survive the game. So that the same thing. You need to. It goes both ways. But because of that, you can have very simply where if somebody runs out of bennies early on, that's it. They're not going to make it through the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a from the time that I ran Savage Worlds, there's a thing about the tone of the game changes when either the GM, or not as much the GM, when a player spends their last benny, their general tone in the game changes greatly.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you don't have a point to soak damage. And suddenly I'll jump from this wagon to the next wagon, that kind of player's like, I don't know, guys, it might be dangerous. Very quickly they become super cautious.
And that often depends on the type of fake game you're playing. I'm going to keep saying that over the Savage Worlds game you're playing. Because if you're playing a game like ETU, where the entire adventure might be investigative, then that last Benny is not as important as it is when you're playing a game that's just, 4 combats in a 4-hour period. And
Right.
So the type of game you play can have an effect on how the currencies are interpreted. I mean, we've played my every other Sunday night Savage Worlds game that Schmitty's in. There have been games where we've played the entire night and they've spent 1 penny for the entire night because it's all been investigative or complicated romance or whatever.
Now, granted, I mean, investigative is skill check, so you could be spending bennies on rolls, right?
You could be, but not having that Benny at the end is not the same as not having that Benny when you're in a combat.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what I meant. The feel of the game, and that's not demeaning it at all. Just saying that's something to be aware of. That different games require different levels, and also depending on your dice roll, you can have a night where your dice are just on fire and you don't need those bennies or those fate points to succeed.
Yeah, you could have a night of rolling +4s left and right, and you're just you're just dropping tasks like it's nobody's business. So all of this is a long way. This was a long way to say that when an economy is not healthy, right, which means that it's not running the way the designer expected, your play experience is going to be different than the design intention. And that doesn't, again, as Jerry said before, it doesn't necessarily mean it's negative, but it means it's going to be different. And sometimes it could wind up being negative, but it doesn't necessarily have to be.
Yeah.
But it is going to be different, and that's going to have an effect on not only how the game runs, but it may have an effect on how people feel about the game.
Yeah.
All right. So since an economy often looks like players spending and GMs giving points, is it fair to say that for us to talk about how to play economies correctly in games, we need to discuss both sides of the table?
It is correct. So we're going to start on the player's side, since spending points is very, very important. In fact, the number one thing that players needs to do with one of these economies is spend them.
Yeah, you got to spending points does 2 things in the game. First, it gives the player the benefit of the currency, right? Which in most cases is going to help succeed in a task or avoiding the consequences of something. Secondly, it lowers their supply of points, which in turn increases a demand for points, right? This is why it's an economy, right? The supply of points goes down, the demand of points goes up, which will help drive play towards the mechanisms for gaining more points.
Okay, here's a couple other tips though.
Yeah, so first of all, learn all the ways that you can use your currency. Like a lot of players a lot of new players to Fate will remember that a Fate point gives you a +2 on a check or lets you reroll, but will frequently forget that you can use it to establish a piece of narrative. Yep. Right. And a good GM will just call that out and just, when somebody asks something like, oh, is there a ladder in the room? And the GM can be like, oh, for a Fate point, there is.
Yeah.
Right. But as a player, knowing all the different ways to spend your points is going to help you spend them, because you'll know all the different situations where, I could use a fate point for this, or I could use a Benny for this, or a force point or whatever, to help this part out. Yeah. So become an expert in how that currency gets spent.
I've played a shit ton of Fate. I've played a shit ton of Fate, and I still forget that you can spend a point for a narrative element.
Yeah.
See, we say that a lot when we do with a lot of the Savage Worlds games we've played, where I've either seen games where I've been a player where the GM will somebody will say, is such and such here, or can I find that? And the player and the GM's like, I don't know, and holds up their hand, is he? And then somebody gives a Benny over. Or you'll see somebody literally say, like, somebody starts describing something and you're like, gee, if only we had a cart, and somebody pulls out a Benny. I brought a cart with me and left it out behind the bar. And you're like, great, you did. That's good enough, And the GM, you take that Benny and you run with it. It's possible because there's Fate point the same way. And I've seen Chris does that. We did that where we played that for the same thing. Like, oh, we remembered to bring this. And Chris said, yes, you did. And we run with that from there. It's important to do that. And different games have different things you can spend them for. Like Savage Worlds, you can spend a Benny to get extra to refresh your PowerPoints. There's a couple of things you can use them for. I like them for use in narrative stuff.
Oh, see, I forgot about that. I forgot that you can use Benny to replace PowerPoints.
Yep, and that's why I have it. And there's a mechanic in some games, like in Savage Worlds, there are, I think, 3 ways now that a character can share a Benny with somebody else. So having somebody else who's got that Benny economy can also help to make them useful. There's ways to use them to make the players more interactive with each other. And if you're going to be a support character, that's the way to do it.
This is why I want play mats, man.
Yeah.
Like I want like one big play mat on the table that has like all this shit written on it to remind you.
All right, let's get back to the tips. I think Jerry's up.
All right. So the second thing is find a comfort level of how you will allow your currency to go so that you don't overspend and know when to acquire more. I mean, Savage Worlds, Bennies use some damage. So you always want to have 1 or 2 in reserve for when the combat starts, most of the time. When you get down to 1 or 2 Bennies, then you want to start working to get more.
Yeah, and in Numenera, right, the same's true, like for at least for me, it's the same's true with XP. Like once I get 4 XP in a session, I hold on to those because I want the advancement.
Yep.
Right. So like I will unless it's dire circumstances, I will not spend once I have 4 XP. Once I get the 5th XP, and then that one can be spent again.
That's my Vegas theory. Whenever I have to go to a casino, I walk in, I say I'm going to spend this. I'm going to spend $20 and that's it. And when I earn back $20, that $20 goes back into my pocket and never comes back out again. I hold on to it, and then whatever else I've got, I play with that. And every time I win, I put half the money in my pocket and it never comes back out again. Just keep doing that.
That's
I don't like gambling, but that's my
that's a smart. That's a smart approach. And to that point, this Vegas rule also applies to currencies, right? So back to what you said, know what your $20 is for that currency.
Yep. And put that aside and don't use it.
Yep.
Unless you want to. So.
Yep. Our next tip is understand the mechanism for how points are earned, so that you can direct your play into earning them. A lot of Fate players forget about self-compelling. Right? So they wait for the GM to compel. But you can compel your own aspect by just telling the GM, like, I feel like my big fat mouth is about to get me in trouble.
Yep.
And the GM will hold up a fate point and you just take it from them and be like, so tell me what happens. And the same thing is true for Create Advantage, right? In a kind of a different way, right? Create Advantage is not generating fate points. It generates invokes, which work like fate points, but they're attached to that aspect. But if you are running low on fate points and you're in a scene where you can't really get into some compels, creating advantage is how you get more points for getting those extra +2s. And if you've ever played Rockalypse, your goal is to lay down as many create advantages as possible so that you can hit the 26 shift hit at the end when you cash in every invoke on the table in one glorious run.
Work that table. Put those advantages out there so that one of your fellow players can drop the nuke.
Yeah. And so again, the important part is like know how to earn your points. So for instance, and I'll give one more example. If you're playing Savage Worlds, you get bennies for your weaknesses. Are they still called weaknesses or whatever? What are they? What's that?
Savage Worlds?
Yeah.
It's their flaws.
Yeah. So, know that you need to play into your flaws. And to that point, get versed in how your flaw, like where you can use your flaws to screw things up. So that's part of this as well, right? So know that part of the economy as well. Jerry, what's the next tip?
Manage your clock. You want to understand how long you play on average. Are you playing a 4+ hours game a night? Are you playing a 2-hour game? Depending on which one is going to determine how fast or slow you want to use your currency. And we've played games. I know that when you ran your I always get the name of it wrong. We were the Musketeers for the Queen.
Oh yeah.
Queen.
I forget the name of that game too because I'm afraid I'm going to say Alex's game.
Yeah, or the other or PK's game.
Right.
But it's I remember that we only got refresh every other game because we weren't playing for a very long time. So we had to know that.
Yeah. We were playing like 2 hours, so I didn't let everyone refresh every session.
So we had to know that if we spent all of our fate points in one game, you weren't going to have any for the next one unless you did compels and something like that.
Yeah.
And this becomes the thing as we talk about. We're going to talk about later on. When we talk about golden pennies. So that's important to know is how long you're going to be playing for, how many points you're going to have, that sort of thing.
And that calculation's a bit bigger, right? Because it also goes into the other things that you had said before, which is like if you're playing a 4+ hour ETU game, you probably don't need to worry about cycling up a whole bunch of bennies, as opposed to you're playing, Savage John Wick, where you're going to need a stack of bennies consistently through the whole night.
Yeah.
Now what's interesting about Genesis is that you have the force points, which are a similar mechanism to fate points. But the way the force points work is they have a dark side and a light side. And there's a set number on the table that's generated every game. And some are dark and some are light. And whenever the player uses one, it becomes dark. As soon as a GM uses it, it becomes light.
Yeah, they're like Othello pieces, right?
Yep. And so there are ways to do things. And that becomes interesting because you see how people play back and forth with those. As a GM, I'm horrible about using the dark side points. Which can sometimes frustrate everybody because they're all dark and I haven't used any of them. And so that means that and we're going to talk about that when we get to be a GM, you need to use them the same way. So
yeah, and that's actually a great point, right? So the Genesis system talks like that shows one of the problems in the economy is that if the GM doesn't spend any of them, the players run out of them. In that case, that economy is a closed loop. There is a finite number of these points circulating between player and GM. Now, in the case of Benny's is an open loop economy, and this is what we talked about in 379. Benny's is an open loop economy where there's no fixed number of them. The GM can inject more bennies into the game at any moment by just pulling more chips and throwing them on the table. Same thing is true for fate points. Fate points are not a closed system either.
And that's become one of the problems with the new system, because the new system, if you draw a joker, the players draw a joker, everybody gets another benny. And because of the way the game is designed based on their initiative system, if you have 4 or more players, your chance of drawing a joker during a combat round becomes 1 in 4. And it goes up by 1 for just about every. So if you play a game with 5 or 6 players, which at a con is not unusual, you can get a joker coming out every other combat round on average. And if that happens, you can suddenly end up with the players getting, we've played con games where you're halfway through the game and somebody's got 7 bennies in front of them.
High octane.
Yeah.
There you go. But for a con game, honestly, that's the way I want it.
Yeah. For a con game, I'm kind of good with that too.
A high octane game like that in the con session. So.
Except this was a slow mystery. We're all playing children trying to explore a house. So 7 bennies was not designed.
I might argue that you were not playing the right game for small children investigating a house, but that is neither here nor there. Let me get to the last. To the last tip here. Understand how your currency resets, if it resets at all. Does your currency reset between sessions or stories? Does it not? That's going to be important, right? Because along with session duration, it's going to help you understand how quickly or how many points you can spend during a game, right? If you only have to get to the end of the game and next game you're going to get your refresh back in fate points, that's great. Like then as you get towards the end of the session, I'm going to use a few extra of these to push things along because I'll be okay. If it's like experience points in Numenera, and you have as many experience points as you have, and if you spend those 4 on an upgrade, they're gone. Then when you get to the end of the session, you got to start thinking like, okay, well, I only have 4. If I spend these 4 to get my, to get my improvement, what am I going to do next session? Like I'll have no experience points. I'm gonna have to wait for the next GM intrusion or discovery or whatever before I get my next experience point. By the way, I don't think if I mentioned that experience points in Numenera allow rerolls.
Yeah.
I think they now allow a couple of other things too. The second edition Numenera kind of expanded on use for those. But the primary reason you would use an XP in the middle of a game is for a reroll.
All right.
Cool.
Right.
Bob, you noted something while we were talking. Do you want to just bring that up really quick?
Actually, it wasn't me, but
It was me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure
I wanted to
we were
leave that for you to address, Phil.
Okay. I'll take care of it.
So I put it in boldface for you.
Yeah. No problem. So really, like, when it comes to earning currencies, this is going to have a lot to do with GM player trust, and we'll talk about that when we get into the GM side of this. But it's important, and I do this a lot when I'm teaching people Fate. When I'm talking about compels, if people have never played Fate before, I have to. The thing I always say, and this is why I use the word, I use it very specifically to make things interesting, right? As opposed to I'm going to screw you over with this aspect.
Yeah.
My intention is not to screw you over or to take agency away from what you were trying to do. My goal is that, like, your big fat mouth is just going to make things more challenging. And that does require a little bit of trust. If you have any of the 80s adversarial GM feels, then this idea is an anathema.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So
Yeah.
So to kind of wrap up this section before we kick it over, right? Ultimately, you want to be an expert on the player side of currencies, so that you can keep spending without running out of points.
There you go. All right.
Okay.
Phil.
Cool.
So, what do the GMs need to do with economies to make sure that they're healthy?
Yeah, on the GM side of the table, the most important thing you need to do is monitor the health of the economy during play. Since the GM facilitates play in most games, right? Not all games, but in most games, since the GM facilitates play, understanding how the economy is doing is going to help you guide play to where it's going to, keep its optimal health. And so we have some tips on that as well, starting with Jerry.
So first, become an expert on how the currency works. In order to guide play in situations where the players spend or earn points, you need to know how they work overall. You need to understand the player's perspective of points as well as the GM's perspective, what they're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one's a tricky one. You need to scan the player's currency levels during play.
Yep.
One of your big jobs here, to tell if the economy is healthy, is monitor the player's currency levels as play is going on. And this is why we often see currencies as physical points, like poker chips, or Fate has those the cool plastic chips, or if you spent like I did, those really beautiful campaign coin points. But points are easy to see as a GM. If players were just writing that down as a number on their sheet, that would be a lot harder to maintain or eyeball how things are going. I couldn't just look at Bob and see he's got six, a small stack where 6 bennies in front of him.
Oh yeah.
In these pandemic times, as we are playing a lot of virtual games, this is why it's really helpful that your currency be a token on your virtual tabletop. Because again, it puts it on display that you have this many tokens. And what that does as a GM is, as you scan them, whether it's in virtual or in play, what it does is it lets you figure out who needs points and who needs to spend points. And then going back to what we said earlier, you can then start guiding your play with scenes or whatever accordingly to get those things to happen.
Yeah, I actually, when I run my game here online, I actually get out the physical tokens and place them in front of me on the other side of my keyboard, so I have some idea of what the players have, and what they're using, so I don't forget that someone's missing one. So
for my iHunt game, I have a virtual tabletop that has I made tokens from the Trevor, the little vampire smiley face that is the icon for the game. I made tokens out of those, and I have at the top of the VTT, I have it's like a Post-it note for each player, and I put their tokens on it, and then I have I think there's a coffee stain at the bottom that I keep my tokens in, and then I keep a few extra out on the tabletop But I can always just copy and paste another token, so we don't have to keep like a big pile of them. I just have to have a few for copy and paste purposes.
Yep.
But it lets everybody during play look, and I can say, okay, I see that, I see Bob's got 3 fate points. He's doing fine. Tony's down to like 1. I probably should just go compel Tony into something, which I think brings us to our next topic, or our next tip.
So you need to know the kinds of scenes that are going to help you spend and gain points. As a GM, you also need to find a narrative reason to give out points. You can't always rely on the players to come to you. Sometimes you have to kind of push them in that direction. So you have to get familiar with what kind of scenes allow for gains and also what allow for spends. When are they going to be able to spend those points to do something different? And then direct play towards those scenes as you need them. Just like you said, if everybody's got a ton of points, now's the time to find reasons for them to spend them. And if people are low on points, maybe it's time to take a downbeat and give them a chance to either compel or involve themselves in something that go a little bit different. So,
yeah, exactly. The next tip is encourage spends when you need to, right? Players can sometimes forget to spend currency when they're excited, or they may be reticent to spend it. So as a GM, you occasionally need to encourage their use. So for instance, something like, well, you're going to need a +3 or +4 on that roll, or, only like a +2 if you're going to spend a fate point. And another currency that we're actually all familiar with that's a much slower currency is luck in DCC.
Mm-hmm.
And in DCC, GM, like as a GM, you're encouraged to basically hint to the players how much luck they would need to spend. Like, when the player rolls and they don't make the DC for the trap, and they're like 15, and you're like, no. But would you be willing to spend, say, 2 luck, right, to get you into the 17 that was needed to find the trap, right? It's that kind of prompting. Again, a player may ask, but sometimes you want to prompt the player to get it center in their mind. Jer, next one.
Adjust the story to modulate the economy. During breaks, look at where the economy is and what scenes are coming up. Is there a place where you can do something about that? Make story modifications needed to get the economy where you need it to be. So you can take a break before a big battle. You can scan the table and see everybody's low on points. You can then decide after that to add a scene before the battle and allow everyone to gain a few more points. This also helps with a lot of fun role-playing situations as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you just gotta, again, it's all about reading. So it's so much about reading the table. And in Pandas, we always make this joke about the 8 skills a GM, has to manage at any given time in the game. If your game has a major economy, one of those 8 skills is monitoring the health of the economy. And it's hard. Like, as a GM, it's hard sometimes to keep an eye on that when you're doing a whole bunch of other things. Like if you're running a big combat, or you've got players in different scenes and you're doing some smash cutting from one player to another, like it's hard to be doing all that. And then also like quick check the table. How's everybody doing? Bob looks a little low. I'm going to have to slide in the thing where he needs to compel. Maybe he'll remember to compel himself, but if he doesn't, I should probably steer him towards, I got to go over to Jerry. Like, it's a lot. It can be a lot.
Yep.
All right. That is our overview on the flow of economies and our tips on how to keep them going. We are going to take a break. Before we do, Bob's going to tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yes. Our very, very favorite Pandas Talking Games, in which Phil and Senda answer your questions about RPGs from the perspective of one-shots and campaigns, or perhaps some other dichotomy of 2 different aspects of view. With Panda silliness, of course, because that is a must. If you listen to this show, you will love it. Trust me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been proven. It's scientifically proven now.
The math is there.
The math is there. If you listen to it, you will love it.
There you go.
Cool.
Yeah, so
the chat room is chatty.
Yeah, the chat room is hopping. This is a good topic. A lot of back and forth about the initiative system in Savage Worlds. That card-based system with there's a host of what do you call them?
There are 3 edges that modify the cards. There's one edge that says if you draw a card of 5 or less,
you get a replacement
you
card.
keep drawing until you get more than a 5.
Yep.
There's a second one that says you always draw 2 cards.
Yep.
And there's a third one that says if you get a card of 5 or higher, you keep drawing until you get a card that's low. Because your character is slow, it's a flaw.
Oh, it's a flaw. Okay.
It's a flaw, yeah. However, however, there is an edge that says that if you attack last in the turn, you get a bonus. So there's actually a benefit to being basically slow and methodical.
Yeah.
So that means that, for example, in the game that we play on, when during normal times, we have something here in Buffalo called Savage Sundays, which is basically a mini con where we do 2 4-hour sessions of Savage Worlds, and there's anywhere from 2 to 4 GMs running stuff. So you can come and play a bunch of different games. And we have an ongoing Rippers game, and in that game we have 6 players. And out of those 6 players, 1 has the flaw, 1 has the draw a card of 5 or less, and 1 has the draw a card of 5 or less and draw a second card edge, which you don't stack. If you draw a card of 5 or less, you get a second card that counts as your second card draw. But what that means is that on any given turn, with 6 players and at least 1 enemy, we're going to draw 10 of the 52 cards out of that deck.
Oof.
Probably more than that.
Yeah.
And so it's not unusual for us to go to see a Joker every other turn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's why the bennies stack up very quickly. The other thing we talked about is that the issue with the initiative-based card system is that there's really not a way to mitigate your character to being better at initiative except for that one edge. Like in a game like D&D or something, or Pathfinder, or many other games out there, your character can have DCC. Your character can have a high initiative stat, which means that I just know that on average I'm going to get a little bit higher initiative. I can build a character around being faster.
We did a whole episode on initiative, didn't we?
Yeah.
We did.
Did we do it recently?
And so that's
recently in air quotes.
Yeah. But just that's something that comes up where in Savage Worlds you don't have that. And as you draw more cards, your character's chance of doing things changes drastically. So that it's an interesting system. It's a lot of fun for a lot of people. It also has trouble. People who like me who monitor probability, it's wonky as hell.
Oh, we did this quite recently.
Yes, we did.
425.
Yes, we did. I know we did it recently, but I was explaining it again because some people might not have listened to that one yet.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about in the chat room.
Yeah.
Also, because Schmitty's in my Savage Worlds game, and one of the things that we've all been talking about is throwing the card-based initiative system out the window. Which in Savage Worlds is difficult.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's still some other things talking about momentum in Star Trek Adventures.
Yeah, Andy brought up momentum in Star Trek Adventures. She wishes that it worked more like fate points, because you only get momentum when you get more successes than you need, and then you can spend momentum on extra dice when you roll. And it's also group-based, and that's pretty much all you can use it for. And so it's an interesting currency, but you don't have that flexibility of being able to use it for other stuff.
I have to say, I have gone back and forth with the thought that when I eventually run Star Trek, do I run it in STA or do I just run it in Fate? Because I feel like I could run a pretty competent Star Trek game in Fate.
You could absolutely run a very competent game in Fate. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Fate would be one of the best things because Star Trek has a lot of Star Trek doesn't have a lot of what almost every other role-playing game, what a lot of role-playing games have, which is a focus on combat. Star Trek is often not focused on combat, and Fate handles non-combat really well. It handles combat well, too, but it handles non-combat really well.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Plus, you can do fractal things with ships so that ships can have their own stats and aspects and stuff. Because I'm telling you, I'm just going to ask this question, and I'm hoping that my I know you guys will be able to answer it, but I'm hoping that also my Alpha Quadrant graduates will be able to answer this. If you were making the Enterprise D as a Fate character, what is its trouble aspect?
Which one's the Enterprise D? Is that the one?
The one from TNG.
Next Generation.
It has a very distinct trouble aspect.
It's that pesky starboard power coupling, isn't it?
Starboard power coupling. Exactly.
I was going to say unreliable holodeck, but okay.
Starboard power coupling is the number one thing that breaks on the Enterprise D.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Oh,
I love it.
Man.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the on Voyager, it's probably on Voyager at one point it was definitely bioneural gel pack.
Bioneural gel pack, yeah.
Yes.
Bioneural gel pack is a sometimes problem on Voyager.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
On the Defiant, it's that the thing is completely overpowered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Defiant suffered from all the problems of tearing itself apart every time it fired.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's its trouble aspect or if it's or if that was a condition, because they fixed that. Oh no, you know what? It could be a trouble aspect, and then you could just change it after a significant after a significant number of episodes.
All right, we should jump back in.
I could do a
totally.
Fate Star Trek.
As much as you say that, and as much as I know you could do it, there's a part of me that's still like, I want to play the Star Trek system.
I know. There's part of me that's like, I want to play STA to try it, and then there's part of me that's like, I feel like I could just make this whole game in Star Trek or in Fate, and it would totally kick ass.
It would totally.
What you need to do, Phil, is have us generate characters in the Star Trek game system, and give you our character sheets, and then between that week and the next week, convert everything to Fate, so that when the system fails, you can just hand everybody their Fate sheets and go, "We're still playing. Here's your Fate characters," and go from there.
We're gonna play four sessions of STA.
Yep.
And after 4 sessions, if people are like, "I'd rather play this in Fate," I'll just convert the whole thing to Fate.
Yep.
All right.
I'll give STA the true shakedown. Give it 4 sessions.
The shakedown cruise.
Every time we ran.
Shakedown.
That's what happened every time we ran Champions. So.
All right. Back into the fray. We're going to field the roundtable questions that everybody loves so much, I hope, because we keep doing it. So they better love it. Otherwise, they should tell us that they don't love it, and then we'll change. So, first question, Phil.
Yeah, first question is, what is your favorite economy in an RPG?
All right, I'll go first. And to me, they're all different flavors of the same. I don't have a favorite economy. I just want a game to have them. I love the Bennies and Savage Worlds. I've seen them used well, and I've seen them used poorly. I've played in Fate games where you don't get enough Fate points, and I've played in Fate games where the Fate points are excellent. And the way that you use them kind of works the same across the board. It's going to be either a bonus to your die roll or a re-roll or a narrative effect. Those are all my favorite economies. I guess I would say the flip side of it is I'm not super fond of the Numenera economy. I don't like economies where your choice is either economy or experience. Where using your economy penalizes your experience progression. I don't like games like that. I don't like that economy.
Yeah, I get it. I get why you don't like it. It's it's a tough. It makes it a tough decision in the middle of play.
Yeah. I would prefer my XP to be my XP.
Yep. I would say it makes an unnecessary decision in the middle of the game. I think it complicates the game unnecessarily, and it's one of the reasons why, while I've enjoyed playing Numenera, I would not want to play it as a campaign most of the time.
I don't I don't begrudge you that point. I think that's a valid reason for not liking that currency.
Yep.
Bobo.
Yeah, so my answer is could be considered lame, but whichever currency or economy lets me re-roll. That's
I'm not going to begrudge you that, because I have played I don't know, a lot of years, 30, 20, what maybe like 25 years of
many much years.
And yes. I've seen you roll through the years, so I know why you love a good reroll.
There have been many times where I'm like, damn, I wish I could reroll this.
I can think all the way back to Whispering Vault, which had a reroll, I think it had points. I don't think it was a currency. I'm sorry, it had a currency, not an economy, for points to reroll. And I can definitely remember you blowing them, sometimes 2 in a single roll.
Because it's frustrating, because you want the thing to happen and you're like, damn it.
Right. Yeah. Which I'll bring up a point that Jason Pitt had mentioned early in the episode in the chat room. about the fate dice, and the reason why fate dice, which back then were fudge dice, they come out at 0. The original intention for fate was to be a set of mechanics for Amber Diceless.
Yep.
And the idea was that you wouldn't want to go to a totally random system. Use the word random carefully because it is both a mechanical term and a character in the novel.
Yep.
You didn't want to go to like a completely swingy random mechanic, because then Benedict could roll like a 1.
Yeah.
And that never seems possible because that's Benedict.
Yeah,
and
if you go up into weapon combat with Benedict, you can't allow him to just roll a 1 and be like, "Well, I just failed." No,
right? Like
Benedict
some Amberite teenager, like disarms him or something. Like that would never happen.
Ass with weapons. That's how it works.
Yeah. So in choosing the fudge dice mechanic as the mechanic for building out this idea for a mechanized version of Amber, that idea was that on average your characters roll with their best skill will fall at their best skill. So if you're Benedict, your average roll is you're awesome. Some of the time you're even more awesome, and occasionally you're a little less awesome.
Yeah.
Right. And then you use a couple of fate points to put yourself back to awesome. So yeah, that's it's an interesting feature of like the evolution of that game, but it's where that idea of competent dramatic characters comes from.
And that's where my question came when you talked about competency, because in my eyes, a competent character should be succeeding on their prime skill more than half the time, and that's what without having to make sacrifices. That is where I think that Fate is still a great game system, but your characters aren't really competent unless they're spending compels and stuff like that. Just by themselves, like if you're a swordsman, you might have a +2 sword skill or +3 sword skill. But
that should not. So to be clear. And this is part of like learning to make your Fate character. If your character is an expert swordsman, there's only one skill level you pick for being an expert swordsman, which is you use your +4 slot. If you have a +2 in a skill, that is not your competent skill. So I guess the differentiation is...
Let me back up Fate Accelerated, because I've never had a character with a +4 skill.
Okay, so to be clear, well, and it's true in Accelerated too, but the numbers change. So... if we're just talking about core, is not to confuse anything.
Okay.
The idea is that your character's not good at everything they do. Right. It's that your character is good. There's one thing that your character is excellent in, right? That's your +4 skill.
Yep.
And that one's the +4. And in the book, on average, the average difficulty is a 2 or 3, depending on the GM. So if you're netting a 0 on average with the dice and you have a +4, you will, on a non-opposed roll, you will more times than not, 66% of the time or more, you will pass that check. Those numbers go down as you go down in skill level, right? So at a 3, it starts to even out to 50-50. At a 2, you now start to need the fate points or invokes to get you over the hump.
Okay.
But if you're, and again, this kind of goes also, if you look back to I know you didn't play Amber Diceless, but if you look back to this game's lineage, in Amber, each character was like super awesome at a thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what your +4 skill represents. Now, when you go to play Accelerated, or when you go to play Accelerated, your top skill is a 3, and the recommendation is that the highest challenge is like a 2. Like the average challenge is a 2. Right. And then you want to sweat your players by raising that up or using aspects on the table as the GM to drive that number up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, not to get into a huge fate theory.
It makes a difference on how, because that's an important game theory thing, because I would say probably 3/4 of the Fate games I've played, most of the time you're rolling against a difficulty equal to your stat. So if you've got a +3, it's difficulty 3. And to me, that doesn't mean competency. That means you're
and
as a result, you end up spending fate points more often. But that's not every game. That's why I want to play more fate.
So that
yeah,
right. And so the hard part is that there's no great hard and fast rules about how to set difficulties.
Yep.
So if a GM accidentally starts setting difficulties too high, then the game stops looking as the game stops looking as competent.
Yeah, it'll be a struggle.
If you were me and I'm rolling, since I average a -1 when I roll fate dice, characters wind up always looking better. Yeah. In almost everything that I have to give an opposed roll for, you're going to wind up doing better than me, or I'm going to have to spend more fate points and then I run out. That's a frequent problem.
All right. Anyway, should wrap up the first question with your answer.
Yeah, for me,
obviously is...
for me, I actually love fate. One, obviously because we're talking about it, but what I really love about fate is I love the compel. As opposed to other games that use things like the flaws in Savage Worlds, compels can actually they can be serious, but compels have a lot of room to also be funny.
Yes.
There are moments it's the what would be the worst thing that could happen at this moment compel, right? Like, well, he's going to run his big fat mouth, right? Like, you can have a character who has a trouble aspect of, well, actually,
yeah,
right. Like, and somebody says something and then the GM holds up a point and everyone else at the table's like, oh no, please don't take it. And the player takes it and is like, well, actually, and starts in. And now, the scene now just got like what was going to be a very simple scene of getting past this guard has now turned into, a much bigger scene of having to now deal with the guard being insulted and all this stuff. Oh, I'm going to save that. Well, actually is,
yeah. And just the sidebar of the compel being the self-compel. When you're a GM and you're sitting at your table and you're playing your fate game and one of your players goes, oh, I did this to Chris in our Dresden game. I said, Chris, instead of going over there where they're going, I'm going over here because I'm compelled to, or I forget what my aspect is now. Off the top of my head, I'm drawing a blank suddenly. But my aspect basically is I'm drawn to help those in need. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I'm going over here. And he goes, oh, here's a fate point.
Yeah, it's I love them. I love that there's a self-compel. I love compels in general. I love the mayhem they cause. And if you do it in a very trusting way as not to as not to take away agency and as not to thwart players, it can just make scenes more exciting.
Yeah.
Okay. That is
always drive the story is always better. So
yeah, exactly. Right. And I think Fate does I think Fate has a really neat way of doing that.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2.
Okay, as a player, what's the hardest part of playing games with economies?
So again, just so that we're clear, we're talking about player side, right? So when you're a player, what's the hardest part?
For me, just not having enough. For whatever reason, whether it's the game itself doesn't give you very many, like say it's a closed loop, or your GM's just not keeping them flowing, or whatever reason. It's so hard when you're sitting there like, I've got 1 point. I really need to use it, but I need it later. I gotta like 1 or 2 more points and this would flow. Like having not enough, just
Yep.
So hard. What about you, Phil?
For me, it's understanding the speed of the economy. I'm not opposed to spending. I don't really get into hoarding, but kind of in a similar vein to you, I don't like not having enough of them. So I'm always afraid I'm going to overextend myself. So I tend to be like, I really want to understand the speed of the economy. Otherwise, I do tend to hoard a little, just because I don't want to be the guy who runs out of bennies and we get into a gunfight. right? I don't mind having 1 or 2 bennies, and then we get into a gunfight, and I'm like, oh boy, I still got to be careful, but at least I got a benny or 2, like in case I get hit. So for me, like the real challenge is unless somebody explains the speed of the economy to me, I'm like the whole time I'm playing, I'm trying to clock the economy. That's me. Jer, how about you?
I'm going to take a change of pace here and say hoarding is the problem. Yeah, same thing. I'm a hoarder when it comes to bennies. So this is a throwback to when I played a lot of games with adversarial GMs, where you needed to have those extra bennies at the end to survive.
Yep.
I tend to save bennies and fate points till I absolutely need them. The fact that I played so many early fate games, and the game I'm playing now is really good, and I'm really coming to love fate. But a lot of the fate games I played in the past, I was just always hoarding fate points because I felt like if I didn't have at least 3 on hand at all the times, I could never survive. And say there's bennies. There were some games where you needed to have them just to survive. Sometimes it varies depending on the game. If I have a +2 stat and I need a +4 to succeed, the odds are good I'm going to spend that fate point. If I have a +2 stat and I need a +6 to succeed, I'm probably not going to bother spending it because the odds don't make it. I'm a probability person, so if the probability isn't good, it's not worth spending that resource on the chance that you might roll really, really, really high, unless it's desperate, and that makes a difference.
No, but that's where the higher strategy for fate is that's where you want somebody creating advantages. Correct. So that what you then start looking at is, okay, there are 3 aspects on the table that have invokes on them that apply to this situation. I can scoop up to a +6 in points right now. Therefore, I shall make my therefore I'm going to go ahead and take this roll because if I need to, I can drain these out. And it's why in a fate game, it's really important that somebody goes around creating advantages.
Yes, at some point, somebody's got to drop some advantages on the table.
I mean, that's a role in the game group. Like if you have a group of people at the table, if one of their jobs is every turn they don't actually fight, they just create advantages by doing stuff. You have helped the entire table immensely. When we played Rockalypse, I was the MC. Right? My job wasn't really to battle anyone. Like my job was to hype the crowd.
Yep.
Right. And that like generated all I did was keep creating advantages and throwing them out on the table with invokes all over them.
Which is why getting caught in fate by yourself can be so dangerous.
Yes. And that's where, as a general rule, and I always tell this to players, especially new players, never spend a fate point when an invoke will do.
Yeah.
Right. If there's an invoke on a table that you can use it before you use your fate point, because if you do get caught alone is when you want to have, a couple fate points in your pocket to be able to use them. And
a very good reminder of the gaming axiom, never split the party.
Yes, exactly. Oh, very much so. That's something that, I mean, we talk about hoarding. Here in Buffalo, we have something called Savage Sundays, which during the normal times, as I said, was a small mini con every month. And one of the things you could do is by supporting the store, you could get what they call the Golden Benny, which was a Benny you could take with you from game to game until it was spent. So if you were buying stuff every month, you'd get Golden Bennies. At one point, I had over a dozen of them and would come to the table and just stack them in front of me for a game. And then we had a GM who created enough of an interesting game where I think I spent 7 of them in one session, which was great. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a good game because we were using them for things like narrative control, or we have this thing or whatever, to help somebody else in the party. The physical side of it, I like to, it's also just like the hoard things. I'm a hoarder.
No.
But yes, just a little bit. I've also been in the situation where sometimes a GM will ask for, if you spend a fate point or a Benny or a hero point, you can have this not happen. And it's better, nope, I'm going to keep this resource and have this happen because what's going to happen is going to be more interesting.
Yeah.
I'm almost...
resource.
The one that I mentioned at the bottom of the list is you can use a fate point to turn down a compel, but I don't think I've ever played. I think I've played maybe one time where somebody turned down a compel because the position they were in was super precarious, and they were like, "No, I don't really want to make this any more interesting."
Yes.
than it is, I would like to just get out of here.
Yeah.
And I was cool with that. But most times, 95% of the time, when someone brings up a compel, table brings up a compel for somebody, or I bring it up, most people are like, no, I'll take that.
Yeah. It's I've played a game where we were playing a Savage Worlds game where we had a GM who was like, well, or you could pay me a betting and that won't happen, and nobody was taking. You kind of felt bad for the GM because you could tell he wanted to do something, but needed the betting to do it, and nobody was taking the bait. Like, we are in enough trouble. We don't need to complicate this anymore. And then we used the Benny saloons anyways. It was a lot of fun. Sometimes even the best resources don't work when your dice keep rolling badly. So that's where the fate ability to simply add a +2 makes it a much better resource element, because you're not relying. It's a fixed number you can use, and that I find much more reliable.
Yeah.
I can re-roll fine, but I might still roll badly, especially if I need or being simply able to add a +2. It's like, okay, now I have a much better chance, and or I might just get enough to succeed.
Yeah,
I'll spend this point and succeed, and that makes the game more narrative again.
The reroll is far more attractive when you roll super shitty.
Yep.
Yes,
Like,
you rolled
drop
a
four minuses on the dice, and you're like, no, we're going for something else. At least if you go flat, you've got a net gain there.
Yep,
absolutely.
I think the reroll is better when you roll really badly. It's not as attractive when you simply need to roll super, super high to succeed. And that's where the fate point has it all over the betting.
Yeah, the fate point's cool in that it has both of those modes, right? So on a catastrophic roll, you're like, no, get rid of that. And on a I'm pretty close, you're like, no, I don't need to re-roll.
Yeah, just bump
and again, when playing with new players, I've had to remind them of that too. Like, no, you don't want to re-roll here. You only need to spend this, like, like just spend from this aspect and that aspect. You're fine.
Yeah,
I also often forget that I can do more than one invoke. Like, there's 3 on the table. I think I can only take 1.
No.
And in the first 2 fate games I played, the GM did not explain that you could invoke without spending a fate point. So I thought I had to spend a fate point to use the invoke.
Right.
That'll mess you up too.
So the thing is, if there are no invokes on it, and it's still on the table, like let's say On Fire is on the table, and there are no more invokes on it because everybody spent them, you can spend a fate point off of that aspect and get the bonus. But if there are invokes on it, and again, right, never use a fate point where an invoke will do.
Yeah.
Which is also the reason why you want your guy running around, like you want your person running around the room spreading the fire.
Yep.
Yeah.
right?
Using Create Advantage to like, well, I'm going to, kick over these barrels of liquor into the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, here's another 2 invokes on the,
If you've got a party and you've got one character that's the advantage fairy just dancing around the field going create. Mm-hmm. You've got a good party going because
it's amazing. It's amazing it's amazing when one person does that for a game.
You know what that is?
That's what I call the bard.
That's the cleric buffing everyone.
The cleric, the bard,
The bard, yeah.
Oh, you totally could play a fate bard.
Oh yeah,
who just runs around creating advantages.
Yep.
And if I was going to do it, I would go into the character cache and get badass Brett the Bard.
Brett the badass Bard. There you go.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Our heavy metal Bard.
The heavy metal Bard.
All right, Bob, get us out of here.
Question 3. As a GM, what is the hardest part of running games with economies?
For me, it is monitoring levels. It is not a thing I'm great at doing regularly. Like, I can do it at breaks and I can do it between scenes, but like, I am not great in the middle of doing narration or running a combat for checking anybody's levels of anything.
Yep.
It's just like there are 8 things going on, and that is the one I never pay attention to. So what winds up happening in a game is that between scenes or during a break or something, when I reassess, then I am like making alterations. Like, I got to go jam in this, like I got to go get an invoke in for Bob, or a compel. I got to get a compel lined up for Bob in this scene. What can I do? What can I change? that kind of thing. Which is the reason, and I'll just give this as a general Fate tip, if you are playing Fate, one of the things I love as a GM tool is I always keep a table of all of the players' aspects.
Yeah.
I keep it on my side of the table, and I keep it in front of me because I'm never going to remember all your aspects. And so if I need to compel you and we're like getting to head into a scene, I can look through your entire list and be like, oh, I'll lean on this one.
Yep.
That kind of thing. So I always, after character creation, I like to make a little table and keep it with me I don't use a GM screen, but I like to keep it on my side of the table.
Yep.
That has everybody's aspects on it. So I have them quick to view.
Yep.
Jer, how about you?
For me, it's remembering to give out enough fate points or bennies. I've only run fate a couple times, and I always forget to give them back out again. With bennies, same thing. I always forget to give to identify when a player is playing their flaws and give them the benny for it. But I always tell my players, like, if you're doing this to get a benny, tell me. You know?
Yes. Yeah.
Or if you see somebody playing their character and you think they get a benny, tell us. You know, I tend to be fairly generous with them. I also try to get people to give them back fairly quickly. This was a lot easier, as you said, in person when you had a stack to monitor. I find it much more difficult online because some of the games I run use maps and things, so my Roll20 is going to be showing the players what they're looking at, so I'm not going to have a page up that's a playbook thing for them to see their bennies on. It's a little tougher to run.
You know what you could do
Mm-hmm.
is one of those little dots above the player. You can set one of those to be their benny level.
Yeah.
It's tougher to do in Eberron because in Eberron, not only do you have bennies, but there are 3 different kinds.
Oh, jeez.
You have one benny that's just a standard benny, one benny that's a standard benny, or you can add a D6, but if you do that, the GM gets it, and a third benny that lets you add a D6. They're the Deadlands bennies.
Well, there's
Deadlands
3 circles that you can modify, so...
Yeah.
Are you a bard, cleric, thief? It kind of seems unnecessarily complicated now that you've brought it up.
What? Bard, cleric, thief? Why not? That's literally...
No, I think I'm misquoting.
It's an order of the stick.
I mean that's literally Bridget's character in our Eberron game. She's a halfling healer who also has the ability to share bennies. So she's the
No, I'm sorry. It's
bard.
Isn't it something like thief, wizard, something?
I'll have to find it later.
We'll find the quote. It's when the oh god, I haven't read Order of the Stick in forever.
Okay, got it.
It's when the bard meets his twin brother.
Twin?
Oh yeah, Elon.
Yeah,
Yes.
and his evil brother.
You're a fighter wizard with cleric abilities and a little bit of thief. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that unnecessarily complicated? Up until this point, I had never thought so.
Yeah.
Now,
But yeah, so yeah, I think that basically just giving out enough bennies.
Yeah.
And that might change in the world when we get back to playing in person again. So, but
it is it is tricky, right? And I mentioned this earlier in the episode. Like the reason economies are in points, like on a table, is like so that you can see them because it's such a good visual aid for monitoring them. And so yeah, it's a real challenge when you like. It's a real challenge to monitor the economy, which is another point we were talking about, right? The main point of a GM is to monitor the economy. It's really hard when you don't have a clue about where everything is.
Yeah. I am a huge fan.
Go ahead.
I'm a huge fan of a table that is comfortable enough to be like, yeah, I thought you did a really good thing there that leaned into your flaw or whatever, and you should probably get a point. Or, hey, maybe you should compel yourself. You should self-compel on that. Like if the table's doing a little crosstalk and stuff like that, I like that. There are the people out there that are super into it breaks my immersion and the verisimilitude. That is the V word. I don't like the V word. I honestly don't like the V word.
I have an easy solution for that. Don't play with those characters. But no, I do like as a GM when I'm doing something, all of a sudden somebody says, that was really cool. Do they get hey, that thing Bob did was really cool. Should he get a Betty for that? I'm like, oh yes, of course.
Yeah.
Here,
I'm all for table participation. Yeah. And again, I'm all for, and I, like you said, Jerry, like if you're angling your play to get a point,
Yeah.
Just say it.
Also tell me that.
Yep.
And in Fate, like when we're playing face to face, I am fine if that is just you hold your hand out.
Yeah.
Right? Like like as you're saying whatever it is to make the scene more complicated, if you are just holding your hand out waiting for your fate point, I'm like, oh, right. And then we'll drop you your fate point.
Yeah. Now, all that being said, if you like to sit at the table and go deep immersion with all the verisimilitude that you can handle, and that's the way you like to play, awesome, more power to you. Play the game and enjoy it.
Yep, there are lots of tables with lots of different ways to play, and they're just as while we've been discussing how troublesome several of us find the Savage Worlds initiative system, it still is a lot of fun for thousands and thousands of people.
Yeah,
and keep playing that way because it's what's making it good for you.
I will always say that the first couple times I run Savage World after I haven't run it in a while, I do like throwing the cards around for initiative. And then after I've run it for a while, I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, right? And I'm cards. Like, but those first couple times when you stand up and you're like, Jack for Bob, oh, a deuce for Glenn, like it's fun, right? Like I like it, but like it does wear. I mean, that's actually my feeling about Savage Worlds. After I've played Savage Worlds like 4 or 5 times in a row, I'm like, okay, I've played through this entire game.
Moving on, doing the thing.
Which is why it used to be my game of choice for conventions.
Oh, yeah.
Because playing them in one-shots was great. It'd be like, well, we're G.I. Joe fighting Gilligan's Island on this one-shot. And it'd be like, cool, man, sign me up. I'm Junkyard.
You ride it like you stole it, and then you move on to the next thing. And
That's why it's still my game of choice for converting simple things. Like if I want to run Girl Genius, I can run it in Savage Worlds. If I want to run, any little thing, Marvel Comics, I can do it quickly in that. Because it's a simple game to work with. I'm still not thrown with the initiative system. And as we talked about an initiative thing, I'm not sure I've got one that I like more than another one at this point. But there's a lot of stuff you can do with them. And at the end of the day, I think it just whatever with economies and cards and everything else, whatever works for you, do it. I mean, if you're having fun with it, play it. I know we on this podcast very rarely discuss, D20 systems and things like that. We tend to go very story game, but that doesn't mean that there aren't lots of really good, D20 or 4th edition or Pathfinder games out there that people are having a great time with. We can mix them up. So anyway, that was our show about economies.
Yep. We hope the next time you're playing a game with an economy, some of this advice will be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to check in one more time with the chat room before we head off to the conversation corner. All right, so that was a good spirited discussion in the chat room. I don't think we have any new questions.
Pretty much everybody talking about proper use of fate points to do how some of the theories on how to use fate points. Yeah. Schmitty said, reroll if it's below a -2 and otherwise use it as a +2, which makes a lot of sense.
Yep. Those are your blackjack rules, right? You want to hit on,
hit on 16 and
right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when we started talking about bards, we had a lot of, let's play bards. I love this idea.
I love bards. When I play a fantasy game, one of the first things I figure out is how do I play a bard? Because they're often not going to be the best at anything, but they're often really good at doing a lot of fun little stuff and getting immersed into the way the game plays.
Yeah.
Many years ago, Bob played a Dungeon World bard.
That is the only time I have ever played a bard.
That bard was hilarious. It was very funny. It was a one shot. It was a one shot night at Gen Con. We were playing in our hotel room. Yep. Bob played this hippie bard that was high most of the time.
I played him like he was high, but he wasn't actually high. He was just kind of like super mellow, laid back, and
Oh yeah, we didn't even we didn't even acknowledge 420 today.
Yeah, today is 420, the day we're recording. That's why in the show notes the title of the episode is "Smoke 'em if you got 'em."
Yeah, happy 420, Schmitty.
And everyone else who
I mean, everyone else can enjoy it too, but I feel like. All right,
enjoy yourselves and have a good day.
Yeah.
Are we good for conversation corner?
I want to make one more real quick comment based on
please do.
We hinted at media earlier with John Wick And it occurred to me, and I'm envisioning that chest full of gold coins that he had. Those are all bennies.
Yeah.
Those are all bennies.
Oh, yeah.
He's just turning in his bennies for stuff.
Yep.
He's like, oh, you want a room at the Continental?
You get to buy
Here's a
other
penny.
services with it, right?
And then I had a thought. Phil remembers this movie with me. Some of the youngins will not remember this, but the movie Running Scared with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines.
Oh,
Hughes and
no.
Costanza, I feel like at one point they were out of bennies, and all of a sudden they're like playing it safe. Like, whoa, wait a minute, we got to call for backup.
Yes.
If they had their bennies, they wouldn't have been.
They got close to retirement. They started to panic.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is perfect.
Man.
That's a great movie, too.
It's such an underrated movie. It is so
that movie's
much fun.
a classic.
All right. That means we're ready for the Conversation Corner. Yay. All right. So, this past Sunday, we had our Forbidden Lands game. And again, Forbidden Lands never disappoints. It was a hell of a lot of fun. We had it has a mass combat system. It's not super detailed, so it's easy to figure out and get up to speed. And in the course of that, you have individual scenes that can come up. And I ended up fighting one of the leaders of the opposing force, and it turned out to be quite a battle. We went back and forth for like 5 or 6 rounds before I finally cut him down.
Before you rolled like that ridiculous
like 5-point hit.
He was no chump either, right?
No,
like, I mean, his stat wise, he was like on par with you, and he held his own for a little bit.
Yep.
And then I rolled like 1 success out of like 10 or 11 dice, and you rolled like
5.
7. Yeah, it was. Like that, yeah. It was really. It was like, and he had already been wounded. And I was like, oh boy, like this will be the moment. Like,
yeah, I go into any combat in Forbidden Lands like hoping that on the first round I'm just going to drop a whole bunch of successes. I'm just going to hack my opponent down.
Well, and you have that.
This one stretched me out. So.
Yeah, and you have that. You have that one ability that if you do a point of damage, you automatically roll for a critical.
Yes, and
which a lot of times just winds up being small and cosmetic, but occasionally, like. You have like, I think you ended somebody once with that. Like you did a point of damage, but you rolled like you lopped their head off.
Yeah, I rolled like a 63 or something.
Great.
Make a D66 roll for a critical hit. Like boom.
The mass combat thing's fun because it's like it's just happening in the background, and you're trying, like you guys were laying siege to this town that had been taken over by these religious zealots. And they're fighting back, and in the middle of it, you guys are doing stuff, but also like it's not just on your shoulders. Like your group has to actually prevail in the battle. And Sean wound up recruiting more townspeople in the middle of combat, like getting them to come out of their houses and join the fight.
Yep.
It was cool. It was
people that were oppressing you are starting to fail. Come out and join the fight.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was really cool. Like everybody got to do stuff, and everybody got like a cool highlight scene in the middle of the combat. And then eventually you guys won the combat, and you like beat back all the forces till you have just now the last bad guys held up in the town hall. And
next session, we're going to take care of them.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a lot of fun as usual. Valheim, we had a troll extravaganza where Jerry and I were on for, I don't know, what was it, like 3 hours or something like that?
4.5. We were on for 4.5 hours.
4.5 hours, and we had like 9 trolls.
Yep.
It was ridiculous. And then I was on after work today for a little while, and I ran into the highest level troll that you can have, which is a 2-star troll.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've taken down trolls solo before now. I've got the, like fire arrows, duck and weave, and just stay out of reach. And this thing would not go down because it's a 2-star troll, so it's got like a bazillion hit points. And it killed me twice. And luckily, my spawn point was in the tower that we had just renovated, like not far from where I was letting it chase me around. So it killed me the first time. I came down, I looked out, oh, it's off there. I snuck up, grabbed all my stuff from my corpse thing, got back into it, and then went and tried to finish it off. And it got me again. And then after that, I was like, it's still got like a third of its hit points. I'm like, I'm done. And then later, Cherry finished it off for me.
Yes. Yeah.
But those things, oh man, just.
Well, in Valheim, every star is a factor of 1. So a 1-star monster does twice as much damage, has twice as much hit points, has twice as much resistance, and has half as much chance to be critical.
Yeah.
So a 2-star troll has 3 times as much health, does 3 times as much damage, 3 times as much resistance, and has only a 1/3 chance of being stunned. And so it's not just fighting 3 trolls. It's actually individually, it's going to take less damage and has more hit points.
Yeah.
So it
was brutal.
It was terrifying, and in all the best ways. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a thing. Voyager is definitely not as bad as I remember it from back in the day. So I'm glad I'm going through this rewatch. I'm definitely enjoying it. And I'm in such a Trek mood that I'm looking forward to going back and redoing Disco now that Phil's going to be jumping in to do Discovery. I'm looking forward to new seasons of that and Picard coming out, down the road. And I'm like super excited about eventually sitting down at a table and playing a Star Trek character again, because I did it a long time ago and we never really got super far in that game. The last one we tried to play just kind of died on the vine, but looking forward to getting some Star Trek on the table at some point, and maybe hopefully face to face. Yeah, that would be nice. And then to round out my section, between Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the Shang-Chi teaser, Marvel's killing it as usual. Right now they're doing everything as close to right. I know there are some minor complaints about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier from a storytelling perspective. There were a couple of reasonably valid concerns that I read online, which at the moment I can't remember what they were, but I know that they seemed reasonable complaints. But overall, they're telling a really good story. The characters are compelling and fun, and their beat structure is almost always on point. They're almost never have problems with their beat structure. So looking very much forward to what comes next when Loki comes out and when the movies start dropping again. I might actually be willing to go to a theater to see Black Widow in July.
Yeah.
Still on the fence about that one, but that's July. It's a couple months away still. So
yeah,
I'm waiting to see. I'm waiting on 2 things. 1, I'm waiting to see on local infection rates.
Yep.
And 2, I'm waiting to see if they offer it concurrently on Disney Plus, because we could all just go to somebody's house and watch it together.
Yes.
In a much safer venue than going to a theater by just, one of us renting it and Chromecasting it on our TV.
Yes. Black Widow is confirmed July 9, theaters and Disney with Premier Access.
And we do have a friend who's setting up a backyard
theater.
Yep.
Your backyard theater. I would be all for that.
Yep.
I would have I'm gonna have no problem hanging out with you guys, because we're all
vaccinated now.
Yeah.
So by then it's like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So one way or another, I don't think we're going to be watching Black Widow alone.
No, I think we're going to be watching Black Widow together, and it'll be like so nice to hang out with people.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Agreed.
Old man's going to go vacate the room for a half a minute while Jerry starts his.
Mine will be short, I hope. Valheim again. I'll just start off by saying that while last week was my big game week, none of my games went off because we had sicknesses, we had people that couldn't make it. So I actually didn't play any role-playing games at all last week as opposed to the 4 I normally play. So I was all online. So we played a lot of Valheim. Team-oriented stuff, not only fighting trolls, but also just one night I got on and everybody else was sick, so I just got on and I just wandered around and explored a bunch of stuff, and then went back, and once Bob came on, we went back to the same places and cleared out some stuff, things that I couldn't handle on my own, and then Chris came on, we went back and decided we're going to build a new village, and spent several days just working together as a team, building stuff, fighting off trolls, fighting off monsters, exploring silly little things like building lake shacks and Bob's Love Hacienda and stuff like that. And then Bob and I decided last night to go wandering, and we encountered just a ridiculous number of trolls. And they're one of the big bads at the low level of the game. And then, yeah, Bob's big troll showed up today. And then when I got on to see what was going on, it came back, and it chased me a good 4 maps in the wrong direction where I hadn't been before. I fell off a cliff and had to recover from that. And so it just got to be one thing, which is a lot of fun. It's what we refer to the game as, when a troll shows up, I often do a lot of involuntary exploration because I'm just running off in a direction, because you can outmaneuver them, but you unless you're Chris, you can't take them on one-on-one. Yeah, Chris is just death on 2 legs in this game. He's generally, Bob and I will find something interesting, attempt it, die, go back to get our bodies, die, finally get our bodies back, and then go, Chris, over there. And then he goes in and just kills everything. Again, enjoyed a lot of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They're telling good stories. They're doing a lot of good just character building stuff and good characters focused stuff. And just to kind of get my mind off things and relax, I've been rewatching the British sitcom Coupling for the last couple of weeks. I've been watching about a season a week, and that's just been fun and makes me giggle. And it's dated now, but it's a lot of fun. It's kind of goofy, fun tech comedy. Some of the monologues are classic. So if you like good, messy, complicated romantic drama that ends up always being funny in the end, and lots of unusual insights, it's a lot of fun. It is 90s, so there are some jokes that probably don't go over as well today, but the rest of it's pretty funny. So that's it for me. So Phil?
Yeah, so I've actually been watching more Next Generation because I finished Enterprise, so I was kind of in the mood, like in the mornings when I was making breakfast and stuff. I watched, like last week, I watched some TNG episodes from season 5 and season 6. I've been watching Voyager, obviously, because we've been doing that. I just recently switched over. I was like, oh, I should watch something different in the mornings when I make breakfast. So I started rewatching Blacklist. I love that series.
The first season is fabulous.
Yeah, the first couple seasons are amazing, and I'm watching the first season right now, and it's so good. And James Spader is just, like he devours every scene he's in. He's so cool. I love Raymond Reddington as a character. I'm playing Minecraft. Schmitty and I made some adjustments to the 1.16 mod pack to fill in some things that were missing. So we now have monster factories for getting drops, and we now have growable ender pearls, which we did not have because that used to be part of a pack that did not of a 112 pack that did not get upgraded. So we now have growable ender pearls because so many things in the game require ender pearls as a as a component. So we found some solutions to that. Yeah, that's going pretty good. I'm like I've been testing one world, so I'm like midway through it. I have a pretty decent amount of material, and I can now pretty much build most things at will. So I'm going to try building the I found this really cool monster factory mod, which is really server friendly because it doesn't actually spawn the monsters. It like just kills them inside the reactor without actually popping them out. One of the big problems, Tony's crashed the server doing this, I've crashed the server doing this, is to start generating a whole bunch of mobs and then slaying them, because it actually goes through all the cycling of that. These mobs, this mod called Zoom is really I think it's called Zoom. It's something stupid. Like it has a dumb name for what it does, but you build this multi-block structure, and you have to go out and stab the monster with this thing. Depending on what monster it is, you have to stab it a bunch of times, or you have to kill so many of them to program the chip. And then you put the chip into the machine, and then you just feed it power, and it cranks out drops.
Cool.
So I'm gonna give it a whirl. Try building a few things and seeing what like power costs and things like that. But yeah, that mod pack's pretty solid. It's definitely different. 1.16 is a definitely different beast than 1.12. The Nether's terrifyingly worse. The Nether's terrifyingly worse, but there is now low-level rocket packs.
Yeah.
So unlike where we had flight rings where you used to go in creative and give yourself a flight ring from day one, you can actually in early game build a moderately okay jetpack, and very quickly once you've done some vein mining, you can build a much better jetpack.
Cool.
Okay.
So I'm actually in pretty good shape. Like I can get around the world, and I can get around the Nether on a jetpack, which makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been playing a bunch of that. I picked up this app game that I fell in love with called Space Arena Builder. The game is Jerry might like it in the same way that you get these ships and they're composed of like you buy ships and you fight them in an arena. But what you do, and this game's got a lot of parts, so I'm not going to dig into it too deeply, but the gist of it is each hull is comprised of a whole bunch of squares. And then you have like a whole bunch of components like weapons, armor, reactors, thrusters, things like that. And you have to put them into the grid and have enough power to power everything and put armor where you think it needs armor and arm it with the types of weapons you want to arm it with. And then you hit fight, and it takes your ship into an automated arena where it fights another ship for money and experience points. It is like Car Wars with spaceships.
Interesting.
And I've been like, and then as you go up in levels, you learn technologies, you get more money, you can get better hulls like to fill in. So like in the last week, I like went from like downloading it to like level 13. And I've been having a blast. Like it gives you challenges like win so many matches with 2 shield reactors or with a vector thruster component or whatever. And it's terribly fun. Like the game is really about designing the ship and then you just set it loose to see if it can win. So I've been playing a bunch of it. You could pay a lot of money to get into this game. Like it's got a lot of paid options for more points and stuff. But I've just been grinding it like a little bit each day. And I'm doing fine. Like you can keep it going without, I think I spent $7 in the beginning to buy like 2 little starter packs to get a little jump on points. And from there, I've just been grinding fights and stuff like that. Played some more Magic the Gathering Arena. That's, I think that's to me more fun than playing the actual card game. I like playing Magic. I don't like having to keep track of all the Magic stuff. The program does all of it with cool little animations and stuff. And I shouldn't even trivialize it. The animations are actually really good. But it handles all that stuff. I refuse to pay money for it. Like I don't want to get into collecting cards or anything. So I'm just using the cards they got in there, but like, it's fun. It's good. And then as Bob said earlier, I played some Forbidden Lands, ran some Forbidden Lands, I should say. That was a lot of fun. That was session number 44, which is pretty heroic, in terms of campaign lengths for our, that's 44 sessions bi-weekly. And we're coming around on 2 years on that, 2 years on that campaign, and going strong. Like this is, this little story arc's going to go a few more sessions for sure, and then you guys will go home, reposition, and then we'll figure out the next arc, which will take weeks, months of play.
Yep.
But I'm cool with that. Like it's fine. Yeah, that's it. Trying to keep busy.
Cool.
It's been too cold. It's been too cold to ride.
Yeah, we had one nice day this past week. But
right, and then now just cold and shitty.
Tomorrow it's supposed to snow here.
I mean, it's been snowing in Colorado for like a couple of days now, so like I can't complain about it. But I got to admit, I'm not really hot on the idea of snow coming.
No,
I'm also not going to clean my driveway. Like we're in the part of spring where it's like if I get 3 inches of snow, it's just staying.
Yeah, it'll be gone the next day. It's gonna be even tomorrow when the snow comes. It's gonna come down in the low 30s and get to the high 30s, low 40s, and then the next couple of days it's gonna be in the low 40s. It's all gonna melt.
Yeah. I'm not even having it. I'm not going anywhere tomorrow. I'm just going to, like, it can snow all at once. I'm going to keep the blinds closed. I'm going to work at my desk and just, like, fuck off winter. Like, fuck off second winter. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
We're doing, tomorrow is
all right.
Administrative Assistance Day, so we're going to be doing some sort of lunch at work for everybody, and that's going to be the extent of it, so shouldn't be bad.
We have reached the allotted time. Bob, get us out of here.
Let's do it.
I would like to thank, on behalf of everybody else on the show, our patrons, and we're going to do our shout-outs. Specifically, Steve Bissonette, Steve Radabaugh, T. Koustik, Theodore Atkinson, Tom Hay, Victor Wyatt, Noah Bond, Alice Kira, who is now a Slack Room member. Welcome to the Slack Room, Alice.
Yay.
Austin Lemke, and Chris Mead. And thank you to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, thank you. Come join us live on Twitch, where you come join us and hang out with the other listeners in the chat room for life. Listen to what's going on in the show, ask us the occasional question, and just hang out with cool people.
And if you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. Take on some of other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Mastering Dungeons, Bone Stone Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Panis Talking Games, the Gnomecast, John Who Hustle, The Lounge, Bonus Experience, and back episodes of She's a Super Geek. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
Yay.
After you have spent your second to last point and are worried about what to do to get your next point, leave us some feedback. Reach us directly at mmp@misdirectedmark.com. That's old-fashioned email. You can use it. We still have it. Check us out on Twitter. The show in the network is at Misdirected Mark. He is Robert M. Everson. He is GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Zhanghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhanghu Hustle, and Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.